might already know that the passing score for the SHRM exam is 200. What most people don't know is how to get there. And I'm going to tell you. Hi, I'm Angela Murray, SHRM SCP, SPHR, and your favorite HR exam coach. You know I'm all about answering the hard question, and today's topic is definitely hard to explain, and it is even harder to understand. I really cannot count how many times people have asked me, well, how many questions do I need to get right to pass the exam? Or why does everybody get a 200 if there are 134 questions? Or how is the exam even scored? And all of these questions are valid, but I've just never been in a place where I've had the time that it takes to break down the scoring of the exam until right now. So that's what we're going to do tonight. Now, one thing I will say, in this last month, I have received hundreds of questions in my email, and I am trying to get through each one of those, but there are a lot of questions there. So I haven't gotten around to all of them, but I was looking today, and since some of them are the same questions and there are just several people asking those questions, I figured I would answer the most asked questions first. And one of the most frequent ones there is, how is the exam scored? So let's get started. Now, you might already know that the passing score for the SHRM exam is 200. What most people don't know is how to get there. And I'm going to tell you. So the SHRM exam does what is called equating. And here's what that means. Both exams have 134 questions. And of those 134 questions, 110 of them are used to calculate your score. The other 24 are field questions. After you take the exam, you're going to have a raw score of 0 to 110. That's the number of questions that you got right. But the raw score is not what is reported to you. What is reported to you is the scaled score, and that is set from 120 to 200. 200 is the passing score. The number of questions that you got correct is placed on that scale, and based on that number, you either pass or you fail. So when you get a score of 200, that doesn't mean that you got every question correct. What it means is you answered enough questions correctly that you can be considered a pass. So even if you answered just 25 questions correctly and 25 is enough based on your test to pass, then you're going to receive a 200. If you answered 10 questions correctly and 10 questions is enough to pass the exam, then you're going to receive a 200. That's the easy part. Here's where people tend to get lost. The exam has questions of varying levels of difficulty. Some are easy, some are in the middle, some are hard, some are even extra hard. But in an effort to uphold the integrity of the exam, there are different versions of the test administered in each testing window. In order for SHRM to make the different tests as similar in degree of difficulty as possible, they use equating. This is why it's almost impossible to tell you the number of questions you need to get right, because if your version of the exam has difficult questions, that's going to be taken into consideration when they're scoring. If your friend's version or your coworker's version is slightly less difficult, that's going to be taken into consideration when scoring their exam. And the number of questions that that person needs to get right is going to be higher because the difficulty of questions is less. So there are going to be less points assigned per question. But the level of difficulty between the two exams is never going to be so much that is unfair. So you don't have to worry about that. So let's just say you and your friend, you take a math test. And for the purpose of this illustration, let's just say the passing score is 100. Now, again, this is for illustrative purposes because you know the passing score for the SHRM exam is 200. So let's just say your test has some easy questions, it has some hard questions, and a few really hard questions. Now, your friend or your coworker's test has easy, medium, and hard, but her hardest questions are equal to your medium questions. To make the scoring fair, the teacher might adjust the scores so that even though the tests were slightly different, they both end up being equally challenging because of the number of points assigned to each question if you get the answer correct. So maybe both you and your friend's easy questions might be worth 10 points, Both of your medium questions might be worth 15 points, but your hard questions are worth 40 points, and her hard questions are worth 20 points. In order for your friend to get to 100, she would have to answer more questions correctly because her questions are scored lower based on the difficulty. So while you could answer maybe 2 hard questions and 2 easy questions to get to 100, that would not work for your friend. She would have to answer maybe 4 hard questions and 2 easy questions to get to 100, or whatever the combination is that would get her to 100. But that is what makes it fair. And also SHRM is able to keep the test integrity by offering the different versions, so it ensures that nobody is going to pass the test around. So when people say, I missed passing by 10 points, you really don't know if that is 1 question or 10 questions, because you may have missed 1 extra difficult question worth 10 points, or you may have missed 10 questions worth 1 point. Again, that's not to say that the questions are worth 1 to 10 points, because SHRM assigns the weighting through a very careful analysis, so it's difficult to say. To adjust the scores fairly, first the difficulty of the test is analyzed, then they assign weighting based on that difficulty, but that is what balances out the difficulty in the different tests. Then they give you your final score, and it is based on the number that you got correct and the level of difficulty, and then they put that on the scale. And if you get enough correct, you are assigned a passing score. So this has been the Cliff Notes version of how you're going to be scored, and it gives you a better idea of how you're going to be scored. And it should make you feel a little bit better, because when you're discussing the test with a colleague or with a friend and they say, oh, the test was pretty easy for me, then you know that their version might have been a little bit easier. It doesn't mean that you know less, but you also know that they had to answer more questions correctly to get a passing score. Now keep in mind that SHRM tries very hard to keep the test difficulty about the same. So it's not going to be so different that anyone has an unfair advantage. If this was helpful, let me know in the comments. I'm always in the comments. I'm looking to answer more questions. I'm looking for more topics. Every video I make is based on a question that I have been asked. So keep the questions coming. Bye.